Hello, 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 my lovelies, and welcome to the first ever episode of my all new podcast, Scandal Queens, digging up the celebrity dirt that they don't want you to know about. It is me, EB. I'm your favorite TikTok coach and social commentator. And I am an NLPMP and survivor of 2 decades of narcissistic abuse. And I've been coaching narcissistic abuse survivors for the last 4 or 5 years. And that's what we're going to be talking about a lot in this podcast. We are going to be digging deep into the dark side of celebrity that they don't want you to see. And today we are starting off strong with this first episode. We are going to be kicking it off with Johnny Depp and Amber Heard, the seemingly unending, toxic, disgusting cycle of these two A-list celebrities and the nasty divorce that turned into a defamation trial that everyone tuned into. I'm going to break this relationship down. We're going to take a look at the trial, and we're going to take a closer look at the allegations that were kind of pointed at Johnny Depp, the report pointed at Amber Heard, and kind of a lot of the social commentary that was around it. I really want to dig deep into this. I want to let's be realistic, right? Because we have this new Netflix documentary out. We've had some time. It's been 2 years since this defamation trial. We've had some distance. We've had some space. Maybe we can look at this now with a more honest and critical eye. And that's what we are going to do today in this first ever episode of Scandal Queen. So if you're ready, let's dive in. You know, I think for something like this, you really do have to start at the beginning, right? Because this is such a complicated story. It's such a complicated case. It spans years and years and years, but there's also so many different complicated dynamics that are a part of this, right? There are power dynamics, and there are gender dynamics and legal dynamics, and so many pieces to this. And for you to really understand that, you need to understand kind of an overview of the relationship. You need a bird's eye view. You need to understand how it all started. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard got together officially in 2012, but they met long before that. They actually met in around 2008, 2009, when they started production for the film The Rum Diary. And it didn't come out until 2011, but that's how they met. She auditioned for the picture. She was told it was very important to Johnny, and they met. And according to her, they had chemistry right off the bat, right away, although they didn't start seeing each other right away. So the two made the movie together. There's not really much to say about the movie, and unless you're a 14-year-old boy, which is the majority of the Hunter S. Thompson fan base, it doesn't really matter. The movie flopped. It didn't even make its return on budget. The Rum Diary. If you're that desperate, you can go and watch it. But that's how they met. Now, this is when things get a bit muddy, because when they met, Johnny was actually married to Vanessa Paradis, who he has his children with. And Vanessa Paradis is just if you don't know who Vanessa Paradis is, pause this, go and look her up. She's stunning. She is what you would think of if you were to think of a stereotypical beautiful French woman. And she's incredibly talented. She's a very popular singer there. And they were together, right? They were married at the time. Now, rumors started flying around 2011 when The Rum Diary came out, okay, and promotion was going on for it, that there was something going on. Not necessarily between Johnny and Amber, but there was something off between Johnny and Vanessa. Now, they both denied it. Johnny was going on campaigns, and just when you look at it now, when you hear the interviews that he was giving around 2011, 2012, before their divorce was announced, it's sickly sweet. If you're someone who's been dealing with a lot of narcissistic people or abusers or liars or manipulators, it's off. If you go and read, because he did an interview with People Magazine or Time or something, and he was just talking about his relationship with Vanessa, and they were oh, well, there's rumors that you two aren't living together. And he gives this big long speech about, we have a very beautiful non-conventional family, and we split our time between our yacht and our 2 homes in France and the winery in Los Angeles. And he goes on this big thing about how beautiful and special their millionaire lifestyle was, even though, you guys, at this time he's millions of dollars in debt. And he's bragging like this in this interview, millions and millions and millions of dollars in debt, just in taxes alone. Okay. Anyway, what was really going on behind the scenes is that Johnny and Amber were indeed together at the end of 2011. According to stuff that came out later, she claimed that they were engaged by the end of 2011. Okay. Johnny and Vanessa didn't officially announce their divorce until early in 2012. So already there, you're seeing some big red flags, right? There's some huge red flags just there at the start of this relationship. Things were being hidden, and I don't know. I know that celebrities handle things differently, right? But it almost seems like because of some events that were happening, like Vanessa showing up with him and then a couple months later showing up without him, it seems that perhaps maybe she wasn't aware of a relationship between her husband and his co-star that may have already been going on. That's just my personal opinion. There's no facts. There's no evidence for that. People were, like I said, there was rumors already going around that Johnny and Vanessa weren't living together. So either way, by the end of 2011, the year that the Rum Diary came out, Johnny and Amber are together. And the relationship's very, 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 very serious. And that's where their crazy, explosive relationship kind of takes off from there, right? Because by 2015, Depp and her are married. They get married by 2015. So they get together at the end of 2011. They're married in 2015. They get married in Los Angeles, like with the official ceremony. And then they go and have this big private island thing. And there's this quote unquote secret pictures that are given to People magazine. And it's just, you know, if you were there in the early 2000s and the early, whatever they call them, noughties or aughts or whatever, this kind of tabloid culture and these quote unquote candid pictures that they would paint. If you're a Housewives fan, you've seen Teresa when she came home from jail and People magazine got the pictures of her in front of it's very that, the candid pictures they were getting of her on the highway and stuff. It's very that. So they get married. Things go bad very quickly because immediately after the marriage, within months of this marriage being made public, there's already stories that Johnny and Amber are not getting along, that there's huge issues in the relationship, that it's a very explosive relationship, that they're on again, off again, yada, yada, yada. And apparently that's true because by January of 2017, that was it. They're done. They were only married for 15 months. 15 months. I don't know what it is about that curse, but it is not a good one. It's not a good one. So they get the divorce. Amber actually gets a really big settlement. She gets given a $7 million settlement in the divorce, and it looks like things are going to move on, but that's not what happens. Amber ends up writing an op-ed piece in 2018, and it kicks off a shitstorm. Absolute shitstorm, right? That's when the defamation trial happens. That's when we have this social media explosion. And we see for years just this nasty back and forth in the media between Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. And it gets nastier and nastier and nastier. And then when the trial is commercially televised every which way to Sunday, a ton of explosive allegations come out. And in those allegations, we got a whole new picture of the relationship. And that's where I think we really have to start unraveling the threads. Because if you carefully unravel these threads, you start to see patterns on both sides of this that are extreme and alarming. All right, Buttercup, buckle up, because this is where it's really going to take off and really get crazy. Sit down, grab yourself a cup of tea. I've got mine here. I'm clutching the chamomile to prepare myself for the stress of what we're about to discuss. But we are going to dig deep into the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial. We're going to be talking about the allegations. We're going to be talking about the timeline. And then afterward, I'm going to hold your hand while we have a very serious conversation about the fallout of this case, about the things that we didn't want to face in ourselves during this case. And I think really, it's an important conversation to have, right? Especially as women, especially now. So buckle up. Here we go. We're going to dig in. Let's do it. The whole case, the whole Johnny Depp and Amber Heard case, everyone thinks that was their divorce trial that we watched, if you weren't following it religiously. But that big trial that was actually broadcast all over television everywhere, and all over all your social media channels, that was actually the defamation trial. Okay, it was the defamation trial, which came as a result of years and years and years of back and forth between Johnny and Amber over their crazy stories and divorce proceedings and yada, yada, yada. It was crazy. You wouldn't know that one person in this equation was like a 50-year-old man, because it was the most weird and bizarre and juvenile thing I've ever seen in my life, right? So really, you have to understand that you have to start at the divorce. Okay, which started in 2016, way before the defamation trial kicked off in 2022. So in May of 2016, Amber Heard files for divorce from Johnny Depp. And again, this is 15 months after they got married. So people are like, what is going on? Like, are they not? Are they on again? Are they off again? What is going on? And just a few days later, she files a restraining order. Now, in the middle of this, Johnny Depp comes out and speaks about this divorce. People are going to him and saying, oh my God, Amber's filed divorce. She said there's irreconcilable differences, and now there's a restraining order. Johnny, what do you want to say about it? And Johnny Depp says, my mother's just died. I don't want to speak about it, which is, again, narcissist girlies who are listening to this, put your little memo tag right there. And that's the only thing he says. So by May 27th, okay, just a few days after this divorce has been announced, like 4 days, the restraining order against Johnny Depp gets granted to Amber Heard. She gets a temporary restraining order against Johnny Depp. And as this gets granted, she comes out with a shocking story. And this, again, still in 2016, when the divorce is newly announced. She says, Johnny ripped the cell phone from my hand and began screaming profanities and insults at my friend, she said in the documents. I heard my friend yell at me to get out of the house. Johnny then grabbed the cell phone, wound up his arm like a baseball pitcher, and threw the cell phone at me, striking my cheek and eye with great force. And during this time, she appeared in public. Amber did, okay? She appeared in public with this huge bruise across her face, just huge, like she had like a black eye and a bruised cheek. This restraining order went on to describe even more horrible stuff, right? It said he then forcibly pulled back my hair as I attempted to stand up from the sofa. I then yelled, call 911, hoping it would be heard by Io, who was still on the phone. Johnny continued screaming at me, pulling my hair, striking me, and gently grabbing, and violently, grabbing my face. Okay, so this was the alleged assault that got the restraining order granted to Amber Heard in 2016. She included photos with this, which showed like big bruises on her face. She showed up in public with some stuff showed up on her face. And it created a lot of media chaos. It created a lot of circus around everything and kind of built the buzz around this. And this is kind of where Amber Heard's story with this starts, and where she ends up in this defamation trial, because this is where she starts sharing these stories that she alleged from inside the relationship, which was that he drank a lot, Johnny. He had some dependency on drugs, again, alleged according to her, and that the two would get into these big, huge fights. She claimed he had this really short fuse and he liked to punish her when he was, in this. She talked about him being this like quote unquote monster. And it's just these really terrible stories. And it really kind of set this mood around the whole case. More and more stories came out. She claimed that she tried to leave Johnny multiple times, but, he would suck her back in, or things were just quite complicated. Johnny also very publicly got a tattoo of her name, changed from like whatever it said, Amber or whatever, to Scum, and, quite happily let the media see that and celebrate that, which was just, again, like, you're a 50-year-old man divorcing. What was she? Was she in her 30s? I don't even know how old she was when they split, like late 20s, early 30s. She was definitely in her 20s when they got together. And it's like, why do you need to go to the media and like show your tattoos? Oh, I got my tattoos changed. Like, you're a 50-year-old man. Please grow up. And again, this pettiness it goes back and forth in the media. Finally, by fall of 2016, there's a divorce settlement. Amber gets told, you're going to get $7 million in the divorce. We're going to sign off on this, and we're going to call this a day. And everything seems to be okay. There's NDAs that are going to be attached to this, yada, 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 yada. Well, in December of 2016, Amber ends up writing an op-ed piece for Porter Magazine. And in this op-ed piece, she talks about being a woman and experiencing the fallout when you speak up about domestic abuse, right? She said, when a woman comes forward to speak out about injustice on her suffering, instead of aid, respect, and support, she will be met with hostility, skepticism, and shame. Her motives will be questioned and her truth ignored. So we're like setting the stage for the Washington Post story that's going to come up. So in January 2017, divorce finally gets done. It's finalized in the courts. NDAs are signed by Amber Heard and Johnny, and we think that that's going to be it. Their marriage is dissolved. Monies are paid. That's it. We're going to shut up. That's going to be the end of the story. But it was anything but that. Anything but that. Because in 2018, we had the Me Too movement, right? This is when women started speaking up and speaking out. And in December of 2018, Amber Heard actually goes to the Washington Post and writes another op-ed. And in this op-ed, she basically says, because I'm a woman who spoke out about a very powerful man in Hollywood, my life has been like ruined. I've lost jobs. I've lost work. I've been blacklisted. I've been discriminated against, yada, yada, yada. It's this huge, it's not huge, right? It's not like she didn't write a book, but it's like quite a powerful thing. You should go read it. Again, that's the Washington Post, December 2018. She said her livelihood had been affected. And here's a direct quote from her. Friends and advisors told me I would never again work as an actress, that I would be blacklisted. A movie I was attached to recast my role. I had just shot a 2-year campaign as the face of a global fashion brand, and the company dropped me. Questions arose as to whether I would be able to keep my role of Mira in the movies Justice League and Aquaman. And this is where the shit hits the fan. This is how we end up at that defamation trial, because Johnny Depp in March of 2019 sues Amber for defamation. He sues her. And the original lawsuit is so absurd, you guys. It's so absurd. This grown man ran to the papers in March of 2019, ran to the courts in 2019 and sued this woman who's like 30 years younger than him, for $50 million in damages. He said he wanted $50 million in damages because of, and I quote, he had to face our culture's wrath. Face our culture's wrath, right? As he's filing this lawsuit, his lawyers come out to the media and they're like, he's never done anything wrong. He's never, ever hurt a woman. Blah, 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 blah. This is frivolous. And here we go. It's time for the defamation case. So that gets filed in 2019. Okay. In 2019, in 2020, as they're preparing for this trial, Johnny Depp accuses Amber Heard of assault. Accuses her of assault. He goes to, he's in the UK and he's doing interviews, and he actually ends up suing the Sun. All right. As he's preparing for this case, this defamation case against Amber Heard, he goes to the Sun in the UK because while all this was going on, you guys, I have to actually literally sip my tea before we talk about this. It's really bad. So this is in 2020. Okay. He's sued for defamation at this point. They're going back and forth in the media. The Sun publishes an article calling Johnny Depp a wife beater. Calling him a wife beater. And Johnny Depp, of course, sues them because he can't have an article talking about him being a wife beater when he's suing someone for telling the papers about his wife beating. Okay? You see the pattern here? So he's suing the Sun, and he sues the Sun for libel. He says, you can't say that against me. And while he's suing, he starts accusing Amber Heard of hurting him. He says, well, I'm not the wife beater. She actually beats me. And what's interesting here is that the judge in the UK in this case actually ruled against Johnny Depp. They actually said, well, it's actually, what does it say? It's like sustainably true. It is substantially true that you are a wife beater. So there was lots of proof provided, enough in the UK courts for them to decide, well, they can call you a wife beater because there is actually substantial evidence that you may in fact be a wife beater. So that's very, very interesting. That all happens in 2020. Now in autumn of that year, so we're getting to the end of 2020, Amber countersues Johnny Depp, and she says, well, I'm going to sue you for $100 million because of your defamatory accusation. So again, we've got this like petty, like, who is throwing, you give me 50 million. No, you give me 100 million. It's completely ridiculous. And it's creating, again, this huge media circus. By this point, people are picking sides. They are, Team Johnny, Team Amber. It is kicking up. Now, 2021 is relatively quiet because both sides are trying to prepare and trying to fight each other off and to get each other dismissed. In August of 2021, the court tells Amber Heard, sorry, we're not dismissing this. Johnny's suit against you is going to go ahead. Okay. And that was a Virginia judge, which of course, Johnny Depp went and tried this with a Virginia judge, like he's bragging about his homes in Los Angeles and France, but he goes and gets a divorce in Virginia. I don't know. Maybe they spent their time there. To be totally honest, I don't care enough about these two people to go and look at that. But it just, again, that smacks a bit off to me. Amber Heard's team tried to basically say, well, like, look over here in the UK, they've basically already said that he is a wife beater. And that it's, again, this is a direct quote, substantially true. You need to dismiss this. But in August of 2021, they told her no. So it's going to go ahead. This is when we find out that the defamation trial that was a bomb. And I don't know if we were just bored because of COVID or what, but that's when it happens. OK, so she gets off social media at the start of April, and April 11th, the trial begins. And it's absolutely disgusting. Both sides start accusing each other of the most sensational, crazy, extreme abuse that you could imagine. And here's the thing, right? I'm going to run through some of these allegations with you, because I think it helps us see both of these people, and then it will help you better understand the conversation that we're going to have together at the end. But I'm not going to wade in this, and I'm not going to pick sides in this. So if you're listening for that, you might as well just go ahead and click it off, because that's not what's really going to happen here. But again, so we have this Fairfax, Virginia trial starts April 11th, 2022. We're going to look at it, talk about the most sensational parts, and it's probably going to curl your toes as much as it has curled mine. Right. So opening statements happen. And Heard's lawyer, Ben Rottenborn, straight out of the gate says that Johnny Depp is guilty of sexual assault. Right. Huge bomb. Rottenborn says Amber did suffer sexual violence at the hands of Depp. You will hear the most graphic and horrifying terms about the violence that she suffered. You'll hear that straight from her. She will get on the stand and she will tell you that it happened. And throughout this trial, she continues to make really, really, really like heartbreaking allegations. There's so much stuff that comes out. There's he actually got found, relatively guilty of like 12 out of 14 or something, but people don't like to talk about that. And here's just a few of them, right? So they're together in 2011, married in 2012. She says that the abuse really starts in 2013. She says the first one was in Los Angeles, 2013. She made fun of a tattoo. Johnny throws her to the floor and then apologizes and is crying and says he has a monster inside of him. Again, all alleged. And then again in LA in 2013, she says that he hits her in the face because she hangs up a picture that's been done by her ex. In another incident, they go to Hicksville. They're doing some kind of like cabin retreat, and they've got one of her friends, and she says like in a state of either alcoholism or drugs or, whatever he's got going on in a state, Johnny becomes jealous and enraged when her friend, I'm assuming a female friend, hugged and touched her. And then allegedly Johnny lost his temper. He grabs the woman by the wrists. He makes threats. He throws glasses. He damages the cabin, and they have to pay for it, like all this stuff. And these are the kind of events that just keep going on. She says that he throws stuff at her quite a lot. He slaps her in the face, kicks her in the back, throws, passes out in the toilet and is throwing pillows on her and all kinds of stuff. And, Johnny's going back and forth saying, no, it's just playful taps. But it keeps going on and on and on. She makes claims that he's detoxing from painkillers and slapping her and grabbing her by the hair. And what's really interesting to me, Again, I told you I'm not going to go into how real or fake or sensationalized I think these have been, or if they've been inflated, because I'm not the person to make that call. But what is very interesting to me, right, is like I'm sitting here right now looking at a list. If you go and look at The Guardian's got a list of these like 14 major allegations against Johnny Depp that she made that are very, very, very specific, that the judge actually found probable, these 14 allegations. And what's really interesting is that there's themes. There's themes that run through this: hair grabbing, slapping, hair grabbing, slapping. And anyone who's been in an abusive home or abusive relationship, you know the patterns. You know the patterns. You know what they like to do. You know how they like to cause terror. You know how they're going to escalate. You know how they're going to ramp up. You get aware of everything. Like I used to be, you know, you would know, you could almost tell. I remember you could tell when one of the abusers in my house would come home by the sound his keys made as he was coming up the drive into the house, whether it was going to be good or bad. You could literally tell, and you could feel it before he ever came in. So it's just interesting because abuse victims, you know, you are very perceptive and you know that there's themes, and you see these themes, this lots of shoving, slapping, grabbing by the hair, pulling around, shoving, slapping, grabbing by the hair. There's in 2015, Depp is in Australia filming for Pirates of the Caribbean. And this is when Amber makes the claim that she was like really in fear for her life. She claimed that at this point, Johnny assaulted her multiple times. He severed his fingertip on a broken bottle at some point, she alleged, during their fights, and it scrawled graffiti and blood on the walls. And Depp said, well, she cut my finger off, which the judge said I don't think so, because she's actually been the victim of sustained and multiple assaults. So that's not true. And this is where it gets worse. And that's when they got divorced, right? This is around the time that this divorce, well, actually, no, that's when they got married, isn't it? This is when they got married. It just is awful. Like the allegations in this trial, and they go back and forth and back and forth. At some point, Johnny said she crapped in his bed. He made the fingertip allegation. There was, you know, basically equal allegations from him of him saying that, oh, when she found out that I owed millions of dollars in taxes, he said she slapped him. But then when he described it, he said it was like a roundhouse kick of sorts, which, you know, which one is it? Did you get slapped or did you get roundhouse kicked? It was he packs statements around his description of things with these really big, vibrant words that make you look and think of other bigger, more terrible things while he's describing what's actually smaller events, which I find very manipulative. They're both very manipulative in the way they kind of perform, and, you know, but they are actors. So who knows if they even know what reality is anymore. So the big shock point of this whole trial comes about a month into it, a little less than a month into it. And that's when Amber takes the stand. Okay. Amber takes the stand and starts telling all these horrific stories about her time with Johnny. And she says, I struggle to find the words to describe how painful this is. It's horrible for me. This has changed my life in the worst possible way. She claims that the incident when she made fun of the tattoo was the start, and everything just got worse and worse and worse from there. She alleged that there was like so much jealousy that he would throw fits over her on-screen romances. And then, you know, she started talking about an actual affair between Depp and one of his former lovers shortly after their wedding, and all this really messy stuff, which let me give you some tea on that. I used to live in Nashville, Tennessee, when Johnny Depp was there filming The Lone Ranger, and he was definitely basically putting out local casting calls to all 20-somethings who wanted to come. He like memos, not literally memos, but the word would get sent out like, oh, Johnny Depp is in this place on 2nd Avenue. Everybody get there. Like that kind of behavior. Like the word was put out that if you were 20-something and you wanted to meet Johnny Depp, now was your chance. And girls were driving from all over the place to go and party in the bars with him. And he was very happy about it. Anyway, neither here nor there. As Heard's on the stand in May of 2022, she's basically saying that there's all this jealousy, there's all this fighting, it's escalating and escalating. And she has to address the sexual assault. Because the legal team, right, and that's what they open with. This is, trigger warning if you need to skip ahead. They basically said that Depp assaulted her with a liquor bottle, allegedly. And he was looking inside of her for drugs and things that he allegedly had misplaced around the apartment. Just these like horrible, grotesque things. And it was, again, another bomb. The two released statements after the worst of the accusations and testimonies were done, and it was what you would expect. But everything came to an end on June 1st, 2022, when Johnny Depp won the case. They ruled in favor of him. They awarded him $15 million in damages, but said that Heard would only have to pay $10.3 million because of some Virginia cap law. So she was going to pay $10.35 million. And then oddly, in her countersuit, he also ruled that she won $2 million in damages because she had been affected by all of this that had gone on. So it was a really unbalanced kind of ending, and it was not the one obviously that Heard wanted. She came out and said, "I was so disappointed. I feel today is beyond words. I'm heartbroken that the mountain of evidence still was not enough to stand up to the disproportionate power, influence, and sway of my ex-husband. I'm even more disappointed with what the verdict means for other women. It is a setback. It sets back the clock to a time when a woman who spoke up and spoke out could be publicly shamed and humiliated. It sets back the idea that violence against women is not to be taken seriously." And Johnny had his similar statements where he basically said, "Oh, my life's been hell and this is the best is yet to come, yada, 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 yada." But that wasn't the end of the story, because millions of people around the world were obsessed with this trial. They were obsessed with this trial. They spent hundreds of thousands of hours on Google, constantly refreshing, searching for results, searching for news, articles, stories, looking up past relationships, wanting all the dirty, nasty details. They spent the same amount of time on TikTok watching live streams of the trial. They were watching it on Facebook. They were watching it on Instagram. They were watching it on YouTube. They were tweeting about it on Twitter, which, yes, I will still call it Twitter. I will never not call it Twitter. And it was just absolutely shocking, the reaction, because there was a pure vitriol against Amber Heard that was so bad that she basically, as far as I knew, fled the country. There was still some legal battling back and forth. I think there was, Johnny Depp wanted to appeal the money that he was supposed to pay her, the $2 million, and she appealed, obviously, the amount that she had to pay, the $10.35 million, because I think she did get it. I think she did get that lowered. There was like some kind of settlement or something in 2022, like the end 2022. So, they found some way to work together. And they've kind of moved on, but it's still vitriol. I didn't even make deep dive videos. I made like one video way back when this was all happening on TikTok. And still to this day, every single week, I get comments slamming Amber Heard in the comments sections of my videos that have nothing to do with this. People will just come into my comment section completely unrelated and go, "That's stupid, blah, 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 blah." Just unbelievable vitriol, which is what's going to bring us to the serious part of this conversation and what really matters, what you really need to remember, understand, and take away from this. This is where we really all need to pay attention, right? Because we've got this Netflix documentary coming out. And it's going to kick the hive and stir everything up. And time will tell whether or not it's going to actually do justice. Because here it is, right? Here's where you're going to get the realest bit of me. The media was absolutely slanted and biased against Amber Heard. That's just factual. That's just proof. That just happened. Now, does that mean that Amber Heard is innocent? Absolutely not. That's not what it means. But she was absolutely crucified in the court of public opinion, and that absolutely had to do with sexism. It was an opportunity to skewer a woman alive without giving, in my personal opinion, an equal perpetrator the same treatment. Because here's the facts, right? I want you all to go and look away and look this up for yourself. Make your own decisions on this. But when you look at the accusations that were being made by both sides, they both sound like horrible pieces of shit. They both sound like drunks. They both sound like if they didn't have money, they would be the kind of people that were getting made fun of as trailer park trash on 1990s Mad TV episodes. Do you know what I mean? But that's not how they were portrayed in the media. The media very much leaned into this story of Johnny is just this poor man, this poor done by man with this poor vixen who just wants to destroy him. And it wasn't fair attention. And let's just be brutally honest, right? There were unfair power dynamics in that relationship from the start. Put whatever you feel about both of them to the side. Why was a 50-year-old man getting with a 20-something-year-old woman? Immediately, there is messed up power dynamics there because Amber's right. Johnny is a celebrity, a mega celebrity, one of the biggest celebrities in the world. With that, whether he had money or not, whether, he was broke, he had name recognition, he had face recognition. He went everywhere and was a celebrity. And that comes with so much insane power that I don't think people realize the power to silence media, to silence stories, to silence people. To buy whatever image you want to be put out there for people to consume of you, right? And he had so many people that were a part of this machine keeping those images up. So immediately, there is an instant difficulty in power dynamics, which is a huge red flag. It's a huge red flag. You have to question, why did Johnny Depp, who was with a woman closer to his age, who was in a solid, mature relationship, why did he then opt for a much younger woman? And, if you do kind of look at this pattern of accusations about drug and alcohol abuse, you then kind of see, well, yeah, if that's true, a younger woman's going to put up with that. A younger woman's going to be like, oh, well, he's going to change. I can just love him hard enough to change, yada, 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 yada. But none of that stuff was addressed. None of that stuff addressed. We never had an honest conversation about the fact that Johnny automatically in this society, which whether we like it or not, it is a patriarchy. That is what it is. Men tend to be favored in certain situations, especially in, instances of gender power. And he instantly, at the start of that relationship, had an upper hand that she didn't have because he's Johnny freaking Depp. And it wouldn't have mattered who he was in a relationship with. That would have been true to some extent. But the age is also just makes it so questionable. Just makes it so questionable. And I'm fine with age gap relationships, but you have to address those power dynamics. You have to address those power dynamics. And there was absolutely sexism at play again, as I said, in that public crucifixion of Amber. And it's still going on to this day. There are people who became obsessed with turning this woman into a punching bag, which, again, separate yourself. Just walk with me for a second. Separate yourself from this case and just look at the fact that these are two movie stars. This is not your mama. It's not your sister. It's not your neighbor. It's not the lady down the road. It's not even someone that you met at the gas station once. These are two celebrities, two movie stars. To be honest, I don't even know why we were watching their defamation trial. Why were we watching that? That's not really something that should be for like entertainment consumption. But that's exactly what it became. And the second it became entertainment consumption, people were basically encouraged to pick sides like an NFL football game or some Housewives finale. Absolutely disgusting, abhorrent behavior that was stoked by a media who was not fair, it was not honest, it was not open, it was not transparent, and was not having serious conversations. Like, when you look at some of Amber's stories, again, I am sure that there's lies in there. I'm sure both sides lied. I'm sure both sides inflated stuff. They both sound ridiculously toxic. They both sound like they drink too much and do petty, stupid, immature stuff. But then you can almost understand it from a 20, 30 something versus a 50, 60 something year old man. Anyway, I'll have to get off of that. I'll have to get off of that. But yeah, this was basically just like set up. It was set up for her to fail. But if you really take like a kind of step back and look at the overarching patterns of Amber's story, some of them track. Right? There's those patterns, like I mentioned, the pulling the hair, the slapping, the knocking to the ground, the kicking while on the ground. Also, when she left, when she finally filed for divorce, and then she claimed that there was this big assault with the phone, that would track, right? Because we know statistically the most dangerous time for a woman is when she leaves the relationship. That is the most dangerous time for a woman, is when she leaves a relationship. That's when the escalations get absolutely worse. So there could be things in there. I mean, I don't know. I never got the impression from her that she was Lex Luthor, who had the wherewithal to write an intricate story. I mean, her Washington Post article, as Nene said, it wasn't that good. I listened to that on the iPod. It wasn't that good. There's patterns, and I don't know. I have a hard time believing. It's very hard for people to nail down human patterns that nuanced and that detailed without having some firsthand experience of it. But we've never had that conversation. We've never had that conversation because it was just, let's crucify Amber, and it's continuing to this day. And it's strange. You have to wonder, why aren't we capable as a society, after all these years of talking about narcissism and abuse and covert abuse and emotional abuse and addiction issues and abuse attached to addiction issues, why can't we hold space for the fact that maybe, just maybe, this woman's telling the truth about some of these things, or maybe that she did experience some of these things? Because the space was immediately given to Johnny Depp that he experienced the abuse that he experienced. But that same hand was never given to Amber, right? There was no automatic, well, yeah, maybe that did happen. But for Johnny, it was, yep, she did it. She did it. She did it. She did it. And you see that in the differences with that UK libel suit, in which they basically said that Johnny Depp was a wife beater. And then, within basically the same year, or within 2 years, I'm sorry, you have the trial in America in Virginia, which I think was a very strategic choice by Johnny Depp. You have them saying, well, screw you, Amber. We're going to acknowledge all these instances of abuse, but we're going to say that you defamed him. It's very complicated and it's very nuanced. And really, honestly, the sad truth is you can be abused and also defame at the same time. So it's the whole thing's been heartbreaking and upsetting and triggering. And it's sad that it's 2024 and we're still talking about it, to be totally honest. It's sad that people are still fighting about it. It's sad that there's still division happening in real life communities over the divorce and defamation of two celebrities who, frankly, don't know that any of us exist. I don't know. What do you think? What do you think? Do you think that any of this still holds up? Have your perspectives changed? Have you seen things differently? Because I'll tell you what, we're living in a different time. We're living in a different age. We all have different perspectives, not only of ourselves, but of these big, huge cases like this, which, yeah, sorry, it is pop culture. We don't like to be distracted by it. But the fact remains that we can definitely see shades of ourselves in these characters that live these absurd lives, that have these absurd media circuses around them. And we can certainly take a step back, as I said, and look at the bigger picture. We can look at ourselves as a society and how we react to these things. How far have we come? How far back are we setting ourselves? What do you think about that? I want to know. I want to know how you felt about this episode. I want to know how you felt about it, about the case, about Johnny and Amber. Where were you? Are you Team Johnny? Are you Team Amber? Why do you feel that way? Have you seen any of these patterns in yourself? This is a conversation that we're having, and it's a conversation that you should be a part of. And if you'd like to be a part of that conversation, you can let me know. Head over to Instagram at Scandal Queens Podcast, or you can find us at TikTok at the same thing, at Scandal Queens Podcast. And you can weigh in, stitch us, make videos, tag me, take part in the polls that we're going to be doing right there, right now, over on Instagram and TikTok. Let me know what you think. For me personally, this has changed my perspective. It's changed the way that I've seen celebrity, that I see the media, that I see the way women are treated in that media. And it's definitely changed the way that I see how manipulators use the media to abuse their victims, because that's what a lot of this was. It's what we saw a lot. We saw people emotionally and legally abusing each other back and forth over and over and over again. And, that's crazy, because you guys have all this money, time, privilege, access. Go to therapy. Go to therapy. It's, maybe that's the big lesson. Maybe that's the big lesson that, some people don't want to be helped. Some people don't want to get better. And it doesn't matter how much time, money, privilege, freedom, access that they have. They're never going to get or be better. And that is it for the first episode of Scandal Queens. What did you think? Did you like it? Did you not like it? Hopefully you loved it. Hopefully I changed your mind a little bit or made you think differently or taught you something that you didn't know, because that's really what this podcast is going to be all about. Teaching you to see celebrity in a different way, looking at these scandals, looking at these red flags in a different way that can apply to your life and your relationships. We are going to be breaking the cult of celebrity, and I'm going to be doing it with some incredible stories this first season and some guests that you are not going to want to miss. So make sure that you are following us on Apple, on Spotify, on Amazon, anywhere you listen and stream your favorite podcasts, and make sure that you're following us on social media as well. You can follow me on Instagram at Scandal Queens Podcast, or you can follow us on TikTok at Scandal Queens. Simple as it sounds. Also, don't forget to follow me, The Real E.B. Johnson, on Instagram and TikTok for, all the great advice that you love about narcissists and toxic celebrity culture. So until next week, go ahead and follow us. Let me know if you like the episode. Let me know what you want to see more of. But until then, I will see you next time. Keep your heads up. Keep your eyes on the stars, and we'll be back digging the dirt next week. Bye-bye.